Hey there. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Della Rucker. I am the author of The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived and principal of the Wise Economy Workshop. So thank you so much. I wanted to start by wishing you a happy Monday here in Cincinnati in Southern Ohio. It is lovely, gorgeous, sunny, and muddy as all get out. So we are, we're into that time of the year, it appears. So it has been an interesting last few days. I actually had a chance to go up to Ohio State, where my son is a freshman, and visit him for his birthday. His birthday was a few days ago. We went up and took him to lunch yesterday, and I'll post that picture, on Facebook later today. It is, for those of you that have empty parented, it's empty nested, empty parented. Where I got that one. It's kind of an amazing experience when you see this, this creature sort of really start to become fully fledged and be able to sort of find his place in the world. And this is our second son. So, we've been down this path a little bit before, but as I've said in a lot of things I've written, in my case, I've got two boys that are in a lot of respects about as different as they could be with having the same parents. So, it's a pretty darn funny situation. It's also a little bit weird today because I am currently grading essays for the IEDC, International Economic Development Council's research or certification process. So to become a CECD, the CECD that you see after my name, you need to go through a testing process, and that testing process involves grading. It invites or needs people who are experienced and established CECDs to grade these essays. So it's an interesting way to sort of review process. There's a slight chance that I may get some sort of goofy message, like I just had the screen pop up. I asked a question 10 seconds before I started here today. So it's always a juggling act, right? Even though we so often sit in one place anymore, our ability to be working through so many different formats is kind of astonishing these days. So we have growth, we have change, we have kids who are learning to stand on their own feet and, move into the world. So it's all kinds of good things today. And part of what I was thinking about leading up to today was the fact that we were going to be talking today about what turns out to be the final of the Local Economy Revolution First Principles, at least the final as it's listed in the book. And again, here's the book, all shiny and not showing up on the camera too well. So the book is The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived, available for you on Amazon, if you're an Amazon user, print or digital on Amazon, on Gumroad, if you want a format that's compatible with iBook, or if you want a PDF or a print copy, and available on Lulu.com. Gumroad and Lulu are both independent publishing providers, independent platforms for creators of content. And so if you haven't checked those out before, I would definitely take a look. There's fascinating stuff in that context. So somehow I got a weird sound from the Zoom call that I'm still having to hang on. It's kind of a weird situation. You're not supposed to log off until you're done, but I had time to come do this thing. So again, local economy revolution has arrived. Woo! Oh, look, it's actually easier to see upside down and in front of my face. Go figure. Local economy revolution has arrived. Kind of hopefully you'd find it a great sort of reset for how you think about the work that you do in your community, whether it's your day job and you're a professional, or you're a volunteer, or you're, what the old folks used to call a rabble rouser, where you're just kind of going out and, shaking the cages and trying to make something happen. I think in any of those situations, you'll find this interesting because it'll, instead of just jumping straight into how-tos, it gives you a reset and a new perspective on why some things we've done haven't worked. A lot of things we've done haven't been working lately, and how we need to be thinking differently. So we're going to read today one of the maybe most difficult of the first principles. Not difficult in terms of being able to understand it, but being difficult in terms of how we do it. We who intend to help our communities thrive better be ready to be brave. We have to reconnect to the reasons why we got into this before the rules and the borders and the bureaucracy and the politics clouded our longer term field of view. Whether we want to or not, if we care about the places that we care about, we're going to have to be on the front line of the fight for those new solutions. And we're not going to be able to help make those changes happen if we're just punching the clock or wandering from election to election or sort of bouncing randomly from one cool idea to the next. Let's try this again. Sorry about that. We can't just, with that last piece that I read, we're going to be useless if we're just punching the clock or wandering from election to election or bouncing from cool idea to cool idea, really gets at the core of what this local economy revolution is about. And it is a question that is, it's difficult and it's a challenge to us because so often we have to live in the short term. We spend so much of our time fighting through, the immediate issues that we don't take the longer view. And yet it is that longer view, that North Star, that sense of a new purpose and a new direction that we really have to stick to in order to be able to make the kinds of change and the kind of impact that we're really looking to make in our communities. So let me read you the second paragraph of that first principle about being brave. We have to critically reassess our organizations and our roles and our professions and find the fortitude to break through the walls that are keeping our communities from being successful. Now, we cannot be foolhardy, and we must admit that sometimes we don't have all the answers. Often we don't. But we have to be brave enough to help to lead the expedition. That's a big challenge. And a lot of us, particularly who work with communities, and that is our living, and that is our day job, or that's kind of our, for some folks, even who aren't professionals, that's their sort of source of personal identity and satisfaction. It's the source of their relationships. And we mustn't discount the importance of relationships with other people and our relationship with our community, however we define that, in terms of our ability to maintain bravery. And that's a significant challenge because nobody wants to be the bad guy. And prophets, or even people who sort of, are pointing the way to something new, can often be pushed aside, denigrated, discounted, sometimes even removed from the situation by powers that don't want that to be the case. And that's a deep challenge. And that's a super scary thing. As I say elsewhere in this book, my father, I've told this story many times, but my father and my grandfather had a paint factory, very, very small paint factory, never had more than probably 8 employees. And it collapsed. It completely, I don't mean the building collapsed. I mean the business completely disintegrated at the beginning of the 1980s. And my father was out of work, was out of steady, reliable work. He tried to do a lot of different things, but he was to a great extent out of work. And we were in pretty rough circumstances financially for a good portion of the 80s. And when I talk about bravery, I'm at a place in my own life right now where I can take some risks. I can, I can do this. I can spend my time on this because I have the personal capacity. I have the economic stability. I have the, I have the resources to be able to do that. And so I don't want to discount that. Taking risks and being brave is scary. It's still scary for me, even though I'm not.
About the comment survey we're supposed to fill out at the end.
Sorry.
How detailed do you want us to be? Should we give them exactly what they missed?
Before you actually don't.
Sorry about that. I had it muted, and then it muted my microphone in the process of muting the speaker. So, it's all a work in progress. And even the act of doing this in a situation where I didn't know, how other sounds were going to play out, how this background thing going on was going to be playing out, that's a piece of taking risk. That's a piece of having to try to be brave. It's a little one, because if I screw up this video, then, it's just not going to be one of the ones that I, promote all over the place. But taking risk and being brave, that's not something that most of us have been taught coming up. Especially if we're coming sort of out of that industrial era paradigm, which most of us, and especially most of us who are above a certain age, are doing, then taking those kind of risks is not just scary in terms of what am I doing to my employment? What am I doing to my relationships? What am I doing to the rest of my universe? But also in terms of awareness that I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm not supposed to be bucking the system. I'm supposed to be filling my role in the organization and doing it the way I'm supposed to do it. The great challenge, as I've talked about over and over again through the exploration of these first principles that we'll be doing and that we'll be continuing to do, is that the world that we live in, that is experiencing this change and this uncertainty, and the term that's used in business sometimes is VUCA, which implies a very volatile and uncertain environment. That's the situation that we're in the process of moving from this industrial era to this future era that we're actually hurtling into a lot faster than some of us expected in the world before COVID. But we really don't have a choice about being brave if we honestly care. And this was one thing that I really had to come to terms with myself, because I'm a people pleaser. And I was a consultant for 20 years. I want to tell you the thing that I know that you want to hear that's going to make you like me. And, on the consulting side, pay me a few more bucks one way or another. But the question that I really think that anybody who's working on communities kind of has to grapple with these days is that question of how do I have to be able to take a step forward? What kind of risk do I need to take in order to achieve those bigger objectives, to create new opportunities for the places that I care about? And that's a very profoundly different paradigm from what most of us have come up with, which is do what the organization tells you, do it with a smile, and don't mess up the system, because that's not your role. The great challenge of this local economy revolution is that now it is our responsibility, because we got to do it. And it doesn't matter what issue you're looking at, whether it's inequity or it's climate change or it's physical development. And of course, all of those things are very related. We have to, it's kind of time for us to step up. It's time at this point, and that's why I call it a local economy revolution. Because, revolutions are scary, nasty, usually violent things. And I don't think this one is. If the term sea change were more commonly recognized, I probably would have called it the sea change. Because what's happening is that our communities and everything that touches our communities is changing, and changing very, very profoundly. And a lot of times our own thinking, our own methods, our own programs, our own organizations aren't changing fast enough to keep up and to manage the impacts that those changes are having on our communities, and to engage with those changes and bring something better out of it. So when we talk about bravery, we're not talking about, going and doing tricks on a skate park. We're not talking about sticking your head into a lion's mouth. And we're certainly potentially not talking about, running into something with your bayonets flashing and, the drums and smoke and god awful, you can create that image. That's not what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is being part of and being an active and proactive part of that transition within our communities from where we've been and all of its limitations to where we want to be and all of its opportunities. And we can't wait around for anybody else to do it anymore. That hasn't worked. We should know that by now. So the challenge to be brave is one that I know I grapple with every day. And maybe that doesn't look like something that I have to grapple with as I sit here, talking to you through a camera, but it's to take a risk. And it's to put yourself out there in support of the things that we believe in. So one of the things that I want to be exploring over the rest of 2021 is how do we create systems? How do we create ways of reinforcing? I don't want to say organizations and I don't want to say programs, but how do we create systems, networks, opportunities for that growth to be accelerated? And how do we reinforce our own bravery? Because we're all chickens, right? Even people who are historically brave always admit that they have fear. Just because you have fear doesn't mean you don't choose to be brave. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here, is that it completely makes sense for people to be afraid of change and for us to be afraid of putting ourselves in front on change. Because nobody wants to, be the one who takes that first proverbial bullet. But if we're serious about our communities and what we say we want for their futures, then the moment is asking of us to be brave. So that's our great challenge for today. That's a heavy message for a Monday, especially a Monday where, I'm supposed to be grading papers and, going through all of that. I will say, since we got interrupted by that a couple of times, that if you are an economic development practitioner and you are interested in sitting for the Certified Economic Developer certification, I've held that for it's been more than 10 years now, probably closer to 15 years. And I'm happy to talk with anybody about what that is and what it isn't and kind of what it requires. That's a perfectly acceptable thing for a CFD to be doing. We're supposed to be mentoring and coaching people who are interested in doing that. So again, local economy revolution has arrived, gives you a good basis, a good foundation for rethinking how you work with your community, how your organization works with your community, and moving into a process, moving into an approach that is potentially more resilient, more effective, and more in line with keeping in preparing your community for a future that's going to look very different from our past. So I hope you'll pick that up. Available on Amazon, Gumroad.com, or Lulu.com. You can also get a dose of how this is playing out in the real world today through my Substack at wiseeconomy.substack.com. If you sign up for a very modestly priced subscription, you'll actually get a weekly dose of good examples of how the issues that we've talked about in these first principles are playing out in communities all over the world. And you'll also get access to some additional resources as well. So thanks again so much for taking the time to be with me today. You can learn more at wiseeconomy.com or at localeconomyrevolutionbook.com. And thank you. So I'll see you here on Wednesday, about 1:30. Check your social media for advance notice on when exactly that's going to be. Right now I'm shooting for 1:30 3 days a week. So we've got a lot of really great things that we can be doing. I've never been as excited for the future of our communities as I am these days. And I would encourage all of you to focus on that future and be brave and go get them. Thanks. Have a good day.